case you're wondering what I did with that chunk of grass I just picked up out of that dirt pile, I got a low spot back there, and I just moved it from this spot to that spot. Still in the yard, still going to, over time, it'll help fill in. And I'll tell you a story. Years ago, I was in my early 20s. As a matter of fact, it's probably about 25. I was, 26. I was 3 years, or 3, sorry. I was 22 years old when my wife and I got our first child. And this house we lived in was a rental that we lived in. It had a upper and lower unit. We had the lower, excuse me, which was the entire downstairs of this house. And there was a garage that when we first moved in, the homeowners, they used it for their own storage. Behind that garage, along the fence, there was not really trees, but there was, I just call it weeds, that grew up in the fence line and kind of turned into, it looked like a bush that over or hung out away, probably about 4 feet away from the actual fence. So when mowing the lawn, most people would just mow to where the overgrowth along the fence would, where it hung to the ground. And so from there out to the curb, the yard would look good, nice and grassy. But I'm like, that ain't a whole lot of yard space. So I went in and I trimmed up all the, I cleared the fence line on that side of the yard there. We lived on the corner, so everything on the other side of the yard was visible. People drive up and down the street, is visible, so they kept it up. That fence line, they didn't keep up so well. And I went in and cleaned it up. Then I had an area about as wide as from this black erosion fencing to what's dug up here. I had an area about that big that stretched the length of the yard, where there was absolutely zero grass, because it had been under the overgrowth. And so after I got everything cleaned up and disposed of, I loaded it up in my truck, hauled it out to the landfill. Had an area where they would accept yard waste, and took it out there. And then when I would mow the grass, you know, I'd go, I mowed in a square, you know, blowing inward, and and every time I'd go around, even in the mud, I'd go around, or I say mud, it wasn't really mud, it was dirt, but even in the dirt, I would follow that pattern around and around and around, and by about midsummer, you couldn't tell there was never any grass there. And my neighbors were like, how'd you get the grass to grow? And we never once saw you plant any grass. Well, if you know anything about grass, it'll grow. It'll grow. And I need to get back to work. Never did get this thing cleaned out all the way, but it's a workout too.